what is loneliness psychologically? What's going on?
Psychologically, okay. Well, loneliness is an interesting topic, I think, because, we talk about having depression but feeling lonely. So there's almost more stigma about being or feeling lonely these days than depression, which is interesting because depression is something you have and loneliness is something you feel. And loneliness is a sense of being disconnected and not having meaningful or nourishing bonds or connections with other human beings. And I think loneliness is one of the most painful feelings we can have because some people get anxious when they're lonely and some people feel ashamed of being lonely. But it's that sense of disconnection and isolation.
Is that guilt about loneliness being amped up now because on social media everyone's having so much fun with their friends and family?
At Christmas time. Yeah, that's right. It's everywhere, isn't it? It's in the shops, it's on people's houses. Everyone say,
Yes.
have a good Christmas. You can't avoid it.
No, like those beer commercials. It's always four mates around a bushfire sharing drink. No one's ever by themselves in the bathroom crying. It's just...
No, or meditating on a beach.
Or meditating on a beach or enjoying solitude in a nice Buddhist way. It's never that. It's always mates together.
Yeah. There seems to be a strong social expectation and a real romanticism around Christmas.
Oh, okay. Tell us about the romanticism of Christmas and how that might be playing
Well, I
into
just
it.
think, generally in our society, there's this leave it to beaver sort of image of families that we should be getting all of these needs met through our families, for love and warmth and support and encouragement and acceptance and fun. And so many families don't experience family in that way. Often we experience those qualities with our friends more than our family. And yet at Christmas time, almost everyone's expected. There's a societal expectation that we will get together with family and that, everyone will have fun and will feel really bonded and will laugh and enjoy each other's company. And for so many people, that just doesn't happen. So it's just amped up at this time of the year.
In some cultures, the spiritual festivities are quite ritualized. So there's a ceremony, there's music, there's official moves and dances. That takes the pressure off to make up your own good time because it's filled up with so much tradition that you can jump into.
Right.
Christmas here, we don't have that. You've got to make your own fun. And if you're not good at it, you're just sitting around with your family, bored, doing the same old thing you've done for 6 years.
Eating too much food and drinking too much alcohol.
Yes.
That's a very common thing in Australia.
Yeah. I just mean it's our lack of tradition hurting us when it comes to loneliness.
I would say so. That's right, because you're not automatically kind of engaged in a ritual and a structured tradition. So, yeah, and there's decisions to make. Who will I spend Christmas with? What if I've got to go and see 3 different sets of relatives?
Yes.
I've had that in the past, being in a blended family growing up and being in a blended family now. It gets really exhausting and a bit complicated.
So that's one of the challenges, who to spend time with. Is there a good way around that problem?
Well, I think good planning, right? Like really, there's a lot of anticipation. That's why there's a bit of decision fatigue and it can be a little tiring because we do have to anticipate a bunch of things, anticipate what, Christmas is going to be like and be realistic about it. There's a lot of planning. Sometimes there's budgeting, depending on how much money you're going to spend. So really anticipating what you're in for and making good plans and communicating them. And I'm not a highly organised person myself, so leaving it to the last minute, I know, creates stress for some of my more organised family members. We do our best.
You're listening to Dr. Rachel Hannam from North Brisbane Psychologists, taking us through some of the issues of loneliness. What impact can it have on the body?
Loneliness. Yeah. It is a very stressful experience, chronic loneliness. I've read research, other people probably have as well, that loneliness is worse for our health than smoking. A lot of people might be familiar with that research. So chronic loneliness is not good for us because I don't think it's how we're wired. We're wired for connection. We're wired for belonging. And then when we are chronically lonely, we can end up with anxiety and depression. So it's not good for our mental health. And mental health and physical health are so connected, as we know. So, but really we are the agents of change for our own lives. So we need to find ways to deal with loneliness and be clear on the difference between being alone and feeling lonely, because they're not the same.
Tell us about that. What is the distinction? How do we know whether we're just feeling alone or we're just enjoying some solitude or we're lonely or solitude?
Yeah. I think it's so hard to put words around, but it's something to do with a sense of connection. Now, we think connection is outside of us, but connection is inside of us. So even if I feel connected to you, there's something going on in me. But I could feel connected to nature and my surroundings. I could feel connected to the human race or to an animal or to myself. So when there's a sense of I'm not connected to anything and I'm adrift, then that's going to increase anxiety, which can turn into despair. So that's loneliness as opposed to solitude or being alone. Some people are better at that than others.
Yes.
Maybe we've got the introvert-extrovert problem, which is a thing. But, we do, if I am an extrovert, so it's quite a thing for me to practice and be intentional about enjoying solitude, because there are things we can do in solitude that we can't do in the company of others. And those things can be very valuable, like going for a long walk and having a nonverbal experience of our surroundings, meditating, a range of activities that are only possible in solitude. And so we maybe need to value those activities a little more as a culture.
When you suggest that to people in your practice, are some of them reluctant because they just think, I'm not a meditator, I'm not spiritual, that's for other people? Do you find some resistance to these activities?
All the time. Some people are like, please don't use the word mindfulness.
Yes.
Okay, I'll call it something else.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, we get a lot of different messaging from the culture, and I've met such a range of people. I've met people who are like, I love nothing better than my own company and solitude is the best. And then I've met other people who say, I hate driving for half an hour by myself because I get lonely. So there's a whole spectrum of people who can enjoy their own solitude. And but when I suggest people, find practices to make the most of solitude, it's not really encouraged in this culture. So we have to shift our mentality.
You're with Dr. Rachel Hannam now from North Brisbane Psychologists, talking to you about some of the issues that Christmas time can bring when it comes to our well-being. I'll bring up a couple of psychological terms to you that you've mentioned in an article that you sent me about this issue. One is euphoric recall.
Yeah.
What is that and why is that damaging us?
Oh, yeah. Because many of us have had, not all of us sadly, but many of us have had positive experiences, say, of Christmas in the past growing up as a child, or positive experiences of friends and family. And a lot of us have a tendency to see the world through rose-coloured glasses or forget the negatives and remember the positives. And this is the meaning of euphoric recall. It's a bit similar to nostalgia. And it can make us feel very sentimental and sad because, we have no more connection with that person and we idealise the memories. So it's good to remember the not-so-good things. And there's probably a reason if we're disconnected or estranged from that person. It's good to remember those reasons.
How do we make the holiday our own? Because one of the pressures I think people might be feeling today is going through the motions, doing obligations that they don't really want to do. And that's part of the misery of Christmas for some people.
Yep.
Can you tell us more about tackling that?
That obligation and duty, absolutely. That's such a great topic. I mean, we feel that we're doing something out of obligation and duty when it feels heavy and we feel resentful and maybe we feel tired. And there is this sense of, I don't want to do this, but I have to. So the first thing I would say is see if you can transform that in your mind. Transform it from a have to a want to or a get to. Instead of, I have to go shopping, I get to go shopping. Like practice gratitude. I have enough money to go and buy some food and a couple of gifts. I want to see my family. Why would I want to see my family? Let me see if I can find any place inside myself that wants to see them or any reason that it might be worthwhile hanging out with them. Because often we can find reasons why we want to do something and we can get rid of the should and the have to. If after trying that first step, there's still a sense of, no, I'm going to hate this. I'm going to hate it. I don't want to do it. Then don't do it. We have to stop at red traffic lights or we're going to get fined and lose points. But there's very few things that we kind of have to do. And there may be consequences, like people may hold negative judgments about us if we don't do the thing. But this is where I talked earlier about anticipation. Anticipate what you might be asked to do or you have to do, what your experience might be, and manage it. And it's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to say no. And it's okay for other people to have a different image in their minds of you than you have of yourself, because that's life and that's families.
Be realistic. Be kind to yourself, isn't it? Don't just be kind to others. Be kind to yourself. Sometimes means making difficult choices.
Yep.
Okay, here's another. In the vein of kindness, you go to some events and perhaps people gloss over the tensions between the family members and there's a toxic positivity. That's the phrase that was used. Tell us more about that and why that's a problem.
So that's people pretending that everything's great and happy, or pretending that everything's okay when it's not. And Christmas is really tricky like this for a lot of people. We want to set aside all grievances, maybe not be too reactive to Uncle Bill because, we know he's going to make that sexist, racist comment or something. We think today's not the day to react to that. And we may want to practice equanimity and non-reactivity. I think that's a good thing to do on Christmas Day. Do some deep belly breathing and ground yourself, and don't drink too much alcohol. That's what I always say to people. But what can you do about other people's toxic positivity? Probably not very much, other than to, be authentic yourself, but have limits around that, because, Christmas is not the time to get into conflict management processes.
Are you encouraging people to have superficial conversations to avoid conflicts?
Well, if it's like we were talking about before, perhaps because we're not heavily ritualised at Christmas in this country, perhaps we could plan in advance some board games. In fact, I was just preparing for this interview. I was looking up, families who meet on Zoom for Christmas because they're in different places, and the 10 games you can play on Zoom on Christmas Day with your family. And I was like, there's some really fun games there. There's like Guess Who, and I can't remember the other ones, but I thought, gosh, if people can play games online on Christmas Day, surely there's things we can plan to do. If there's kids involved, then that makes it easier. If there's not, there's still ways to play, watch a Christmas movie together. I don't know, plan the time, because unstructured time with family can go awry.
You mentioned a little earlier something I want to follow up, which is reframing, focusing on the good. What can I find that I enjoy about my family or these people I'm spending time with? We don't get taught reframing at school, and we learn it when we're having a meltdown in our mid-30s and we go to see someone.
Yes, our therapist teaches about it when our grade 12 teacher probably should have taught us about it.
Yes. Is there anything for a younger listener listening in that they should learn about reframe? What's some good tips to reframe? Because that sounds like a vital life skill.
It is a vital life skill, and it's something, once we get it, we probably need to do every day, because our brains have a negativity bias. So we will tend to scan for and look for the negatives in our relatives, in our friends, in our own lives. So it is about finding another way to think. It's like putting a picture in a different frame makes the picture look different, even though it's the same picture. So it is about, why would I want to see these people on this day? How can I make the most of this? If you Google cognitive reframing, you'll find lots of techniques online for it. But it really is about continuing to maintain a realistic mindset about people and life, but in a way that's much more positive. It's not about being toxically positive or idealistic or romantic. It's about making the most of what is, rather than wishing that things were other than they are, which just causes us suffering. Uncle Bill is the way he is. Your mum is the way she is. So there's a sort of Christmas really, when you think about the spirit of Christmas, which is about celebration and joy and taking time out, I guess about love, then we want to try to cultivate those qualities in our own mind before we get to the actual day, which I know is challenging because some people are really task-oriented, getting everything done. I would say no one remembers whether your floors were dirty or clean on Christmas Day. They remember the interactions.
The interactions count. Sue has messaged in from Cleveland. A family member is worried about going to a family event, was worried about going to a family event some years ago. They rang her about it and suggested to make herself a bit of a role in the event. She decided to take her camera and the photos of people. So she ended up having a nice time, could give people photos afterwards, become the camera person or the videographer.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Give people roles. Yeah, get creative. That's a great idea.
I like that. Give yourself a job. And if you're an introverted person, that's actually fantastic, because people don't talk to you when you're busy doing a job, and you still get to be part of the fun, but you don't have to make small talk, which is the hard part.
That's right. Yeah, you can make Christmas Day interactive with photos, with, build your own, Christmas lunch from, I don't know. There's so many ways you could make it interactive, fun and creative.
We're almost time to finish with a song and end the show, but I wanted to talk to you about one more topic, which is journaling. Is that valuable and why?
Yeah, and that probably relates to if you're spending Christmas alone this year. I just wanted to mention 2 or 3 things. Yeah. Journaling is a good way to have that connection with yourself, like we were talking about before. And I would suggest people just start writing. Start writing anything, how you're feeling, what you're doing, your worries, your fears, your gratitudes. That doesn't have to be a structure to journaling. The act of writing helps you get in touch with yourself and it gets it out of your head onto paper. The other thing you can do on Christmas Day if you're alone is plan to go for a really long walk if the weather permits, early or late if it's summertime, and to, do some really nice things for yourself that day because it's easy to get depressed. I'm all alone. I'm going to get drunk. I wouldn't recommend that sort of approach. Plan a nice day for yourself and reframe solitude as an opportunity and not a pathology. There's people all over the place probably thinking, I wish I was on my own instead of with family. So you can reframe anything.
I reframe sometimes when I'm lying in the botanic gardens on the grass. I'm alone. But then I think there's actually thousands of spiders under me and worms and locusts, whatever is there. I'm not alone at all.
You're not alone.
I'm in a nightmare right now, but yeah.
But then there's the birds and the trees and the clouds.
That's true, all the fluffy things as well. You want to journal. You want to keep a record of things, but you don't want to ruminate either.
That's right. Yeah. So when I journal, I put aside all expectations that I'm going to write a masterpiece, and I just maybe write where I am, what I'm doing, what I'm feeling, and I try to be careful that it doesn't turn into self-pity in any way. It's just a stream of consciousness and see what it turns into. And gratitude, journaling, I intersperse it with gratitude journaling. Like, what are the things that are really good in my life? Because it's easy to focus on what's not so good.
Someone's mentioned some gratitude as well. Stuart has texted in from Ashwin. Hi, Ashwin. Love the Saturday Breakfast Show and Down the Rabbit Hole music segment, which should be back next year when Kate's back on. Have a happy new year. And good luck to the Broncos as well. I'm just texting. I won't read all of that. But a man full of gratitude for listening to the radio as well. He's found something he enjoys.
That's right. People can listen to the radio on Christmas Day. They can go and see a movie. There's lots of things they can do.
Radio presenters can be your friend.
That's right.
Instead.
A friendly voice.
Dr. Rachel Hannam, as I clear my throat for this one last time, it was nice to have you in the studio. Thank you for coming in.
My pleasure. Thanks, Ashwin.
That's Dr. Rachel Hannam from North Brisbane Psychologists.